Hey, Napey friend, welcome back to our Napey Little Club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight we embark on a journey that will lull your senses and calm your mind as we delve into the peculiar yet undeniably relaxing history of one of the world's most enduring mysteries, the legendary monster of Loch Ness. Imagine, if you will, the cool, crisp air of the Scottish Highlands, not the biting wind that would chill you to the bone if you were actually there in the 18th century, but a gentle breeze carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, just enough to tickle your imagination from the safety of your cozy bed. You probably wouldn't survive a single night sleeping rough in those ancient times, with only a scratchy wool blanket and the distant howl of something undefined. But here, in our little corner of the internet, you are perfectly safe, supremely relaxed, and utterly immune to whatever primordial beasties might have roamed those glens. You are cocooned in comfort, enveloped by soft sounds and gentle narratives, far from the rough and tumble of historical fact-finding missions involving muddy boots and questionable sandwiches. So, before your eyelids get too heavy, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history's most relaxing secrets, right? If you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and while you're settling in, tell us in the comments, where are you listening from, and what cozy hour is it for you right now? We love knowing how far our little Napey community stretches. So, dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey, because you're now officially in Napey community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our Napey family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. Our story tonight begins far from the bustling media circuses and sonar-equipped boats that would one day haunt the tranquil waters of Loch Ness. We start in a place of esoteric rituals and audacious experiments, in a sun-drenched villa on the Sicilian coast, known as the Abbadia de Thelema. This was the peculiar domain of one Aleister Crowley, a figure whose life was as complex and debated as the very mysteries he pursued. You see him now, perhaps, as he prepares to bid a subtle farewell to this self-proclaimed kingdom, a place that for all its scandalous reputation had grown perhaps a touch too predictable for a man who famously declared his will to be the only law. Imagine the scents here, the lingering perfume of incense, perhaps a hint of something more, exotic from esoteric mixtures mingling with the Mediterranean salt air. You hear the gentle lapping of waves against the shore, a stark contrast to the deep, dark silence of the Scottish loch that would soon call to him. Crowley, often dubbed the Great Beast 666 by the press and perhaps by himself, with a certain wry amusement, had spent years in Thelema, pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable or even sane. Here he had attempted to manifest new spiritual realities, to live out his philosophy of Thelema, which, boiled down to its simplest form, was "do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Sounds liberating, doesn't it? Though in practice it often led to a rather chaotic domestic life and rather intense magical workings. This was a man, you understand, who found the mundane utterly unbearable, a true connoisseur of the extraordinary, even if it meant stirring up a bit of trouble wherever he went. Yet, even for someone as relentlessly experimental as Crowley, the Abbey eventually began to feel like a cage, albeit a very strange and ornate one, A recognized historical fact about Crowley is his establishment of the Abbey of Thelema in Cefalù, Sicily, in 1920, intending it as a spiritual center for his Thelemic community. It was a place where adherents would undergo rigorous spiritual training, which often included practices that were considered scandalous at the time, leading to much public outcry and eventually his expulsion from Italy. His departure from Sicily was not a dramatic flight, but a rather quiet, almost reflective withdrawal, a strategic retreat from the glare of international scandal that had clung to him like a particularly persistent limpet. He sought a new sanctuary, a place where the air was cooler, the landscapes wilder, and perhaps the ancient energies more potent and less public. He envisioned a new beginning, a place where he could delve deeper into his magical pursuits, without the constant interruption of disapproving authorities or overly curious journalists. A curious eccentricity about Crowley was his belief in astral travel and the manifestation of invisible entities, a concept he would later apply to his experiences at Loch Ness. He wasn't just looking for a quiet cottage. He was looking for a magical nexus, a point on the earth where the veil between worlds was thin and where his rituals might yield even more profound results. He believed the land itself held power, that certain geographical locations were imbued with unique spiritual resonance. This wasn't merely a philosophical inclination, it was a practical cornerstone of his magical system. As he contemplated his next move, perhaps sipping a particularly potent brew of tea, or something stronger, we can't be entirely sure, but the thought adds a certain piquancy to the scene. He mused over potential destinations. He needed solitude, a place untouched by the clamor of the modern world, a landscape that echoed the wildness of his own spirit. And as fate, or perhaps some unseen force, would have it, his gaze, whether literal or metaphorical, fell upon the distant misty shores of Scotland. Historiadores ainda discutem se Crowley's move to Scotland was purely a strategic retreat from controversy, or if there was a deeper, more esoteric pull towards the ancient lands and their reputed magical currents. Some argue it was a pragmatic choice, others that it was a deeply spiritual pilgrimage. What is clear, however, is that he sought a place where he could continue his singular life's work, unmolested by the judgment of society, and perhaps unmolested by the mundane. He craved the extraordinary, and Scotland, with its deep lochs and craggy mountains, promised it in spades. He was looking for peace, yes, but peace of a very specific, occult kind. A peace that could only be found in the heart of raw, untamed nature, where the echoes of ancient magic still resonated. As you join Aleister Crowley on his journey northward, you can almost feel the shift in the very fabric of the air. The balmy Mediterranean sun gives way to a bracing Scottish chill, the scent of olive groves replaced by the damp, earthy aroma of peat and heather. It's a journey from the overt opulence and chaotic energy of Thelema to something far more primal, far more ancient. He wasn't just changing continents, he was changing spiritual landscapes. Imagine the gentle rhythm of the train wheels, click-clacking you deeper and deeper into the wild heart of Scotland. Each revolution pulling you further from the world of headlines and scandal, closer to a realm of mist and legend. Perhaps he gazed out the window, a knowing smile playing on his lips, contemplating the profound transformation. A recognized historical fact is that Crowley, after his expulsion from Italy in 1923, spent time in various locations before settling in Scotland, continuing his magical work and writing, often seeking secluded spots. He was a man perpetually in motion, always seeking the next crucible for his alchemical experiments of the soul. You see him now, stepping onto the platform, perhaps at a small remote station, the air crisp and invigorating, carrying the distant bleating of sheep or the cry of a lone bird of prey. The Scottish Highlands rise around you, majestic and imposing, a landscape carved by glaciers and millennia of wind and rain. This was the kind of raw, untamed beauty that truly resonated with Crowley's esoteric sensibilities. He wasn't looking for manicured gardens or polite society. He was searching for the wild, untamed currents of the earth, the ley lines, and energy vortices that he believed held the keys to deeper magical workings. This wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a profound, spiritual pilgrimage. He sought the kind of solitude where one could truly hear the whisper of the ancient world, undisturbed by the clamor of modernity. One might even joke that he was looking for a place where the Wi-Fi was reliably terrible, ensuring maximum focus on his occult endeavors. As Crowley began to immerse himself in the local culture, which, admittedly, might have been a bit of a challenge for a man of his particular tastes, he would inevitably have encountered the rich tapestry of Scottish folklore. You hear the stories now, whispered by the crackling fire in a remote pub, or perhaps muttered by a grizzled old fisherman mending his nets by the lochside. Tales of mischievous fairies, formidable giants, and most pertinently, of the enigmatic creatures that dwelled in the depths of Scotland's countless lochs. These weren't just bedtime stories for children. They were ingrained in the very identity of the people, explanations for the inexplicable echoes of ancient fears and wonders. A curious eccentricity about Scottish folklore is the widespread belief in kelpies, or water horses, shape-shifting entities that could appear as beautiful horses to lure unsuspecting travelers into the water, or as grotesque beasts. This wasn't just a monster story. It was a cautionary tale wrapped in a supernatural package designed to keep people away from dangerous waters. Imagine for a moment the sheer practicality of such a legend, an ancient form of public safety announcement, perhaps. Don't swim alone after dusk, dearie, or the kelpie might get you. Far more effective than a no swimming sign, wouldn't you agree? And among these myriad tales, one would have stood out for its proximity to his chosen new home and its remarkable antiquity. This was the legend of St. Columba. Picture it, the 6th century, long before tourists arrived with their cameras, and the internet was but a twinkle in a future inventor's eye. St. Columba, an Irish missionary, a man of profound faith and no doubt considerable influence, was on a mission to spread Christianity across Scotland. A widely recognized historical fact is the account of St. Columba's encounter with a water beast in the River Ness, detailed in Adomnan of Iona's Vita Columbae, Life of Columba, written about a century after the event. The story goes that Columba and his companions encountered local Picts burying a man who had been tragically pulled from the River Ness by a monstrous creature. When one of Columba's disciples, a brave soul named Lugna Moku Min, decided to swim across the river, the beast emerged from the depths, roaring and pursuing him with great ferocity. You can almost feel the tension in that moment, the water churning, the frantic splashes, the very air thick with primal fear. But Columba, ever the man of God, did not falter. He simply raised his hand, made the sign of the cross, and commanded the creature, "Go no further, and do not touch the man. Go back at once." And according to the ancient text, the monster, as if struck by an invisible force, recoiled in terror and vanished back into the depths of the river. The onlookers, both pagan Picts and Columba's Christian followers, were astounded by this miraculous intervention. It was a potent display of spiritual power, a clear victory for Christianity over the pagan superstitions and terrors of the old world. You can almost hear the sighs of relief, the awestruck murmurs, as the disciples safely reached the shore, dripping but unharmed. It certainly beats dealing with a particularly stubborn, leaky faucet, doesn't it? A monster tamed by a stern word and a blessing. Now, how do you think Aleister Crowley, a man who built his entire life around the manipulation of unseen forces and the exploration of esoteric power, would have interpreted this tale? For him, it wouldn't be just a simple miracle or a charming piece of folklore. He would likely see it as a powerful confirmation of the existence of unseen entities, perhaps elemental spirits or thought forms that could be influenced, controlled, or even conjured through magical will. He might have mused that Columba, perhaps unknowingly, tapped into some fundamental magical current, a force that allowed him to project his will upon the creature. The historical fact of Columba's legend for Crowley would have been a hint, a breadcrumb, leading towards deeper, more profound truths about the nature of reality and the hidden forces that govern it. He wasn't interested in saving souls. In the traditional sense, he was interested in mastering the energies of the universe. This ancient account of Saint Columba battling a water beast in the river Ness is a fascinating historical anomaly, a very early thread in the intricate tapestry of the Loch Ness Monster legend. It provides a foundational, albeit debated, precedent for the idea of a large, mysterious creature inhabiting these waters. Historians still discuss whether Adamnan's account was a literal description of an unknown animal, a metaphorical depiction of paganism being subdued by Christianity, or perhaps a hyperbolic embellishment designed to emphasize Columba's saintliness. Was it a cryptid, a misidentified animal, or simply a powerful symbol in a nascent religious landscape? For Crowley, the answer likely lay somewhere in the realm of the occult, blending the physical with the astral. He would have felt a deep resonance with these dark, mysterious stories, seeing them not as mere superstitions, but as fragmented memories of a time when humanity was more attuned to the subtle energies of the world. It was a time when the veil between the seen and unseen was thinner, when the magic was not just a trick, but a tangible force, something a magus like himself could truly work with. He was entering a land where the ancient magic, he believed, still lingered, waiting to be reawakened. As the ancient whispers of kelpies and saintly encounters settled in your mind, much like the mist settling over the highlands, Aleister Crowley continued his deliberate search for the perfect sanctuary. He wasn't simply looking for a quiet cottage with a nice view. He was on a sacred quest for a magical fortress, a place where the earthly energies aligned with his esoteric ambitions. You can almost feel the weight of his contemplation as he traversed the rugged landscape, seeking out the very pulse of the land. He desired isolation, yes, but an isolation that hummed with purpose, a solitude charged with arcane potential. He wasn't one for casual strolls or idle bird watching, unless, of course, the birds were delivering cryptic messages from the astral plane. He craved a place where the mundane world would recede, allowing his inner world of magic and ritual to expand without interruption. And then his gaze, or perhaps some unseen force, led him to a particular spot on the southeastern shore of Loch Ness. Here stood Boleskine House. You see it now, a sturdy, stone-built manor, perhaps not grand in the conventional sense, but possessing an undeniable aura of quiet gravitas, almost as if it had been waiting for someone like Crowley to unlock its deeper secrets. It was remote, certainly, nestled amidst thick woods, overlooking the dark, expansive waters of the loch. For most, it would be a delightful, if somewhat gloomy, retreat from the bustle of city life. For Crowley, it was a crucible. A widely recognized historical fact about Boleskine House is its purchase by Aleister Crowley in 1899, long before he went to Sicily. He was particularly drawn to its remote location and its connection to the infamous 18th century Hellfire Club, believing it would be ideal for performing his rigorous ceremonial magic, specifically the Abramelin operation. This was no casual real estate acquisition. It was a deeply symbolic and strategic move for his occult pursuits. Imagine the crisp, clean air, infused with the scent of damp earth and ancient stone. The silence here was profound, broken only by the cry of a distant bird or the gentle lapping of the loch's dark waters against the shore. This was a silence that spoke volumes to Crowley, a silence that invited contemplation and concentration, far removed from the clamor of London or the scandalous whispers of Sicily. He wasn't just buying a house, he was acquiring a portal, and for a man who believed in manipulating cosmic forces, having the right address was probably more important than having good plumbing, which, let's be honest, in a remote Scottish manor from that era was probably a gamble anyway. You can almost hear him muttering about energy conduits and astral currents, while someone else worried about the roof. The choice of Boleskine House was no accident, nor was it a random whim. Crowley was meticulous, even in his eccentricities. He believed the house was uniquely suited for his magical work, not just because of its isolation, but because of its alleged history and geographical position. A curious eccentricity about Boleskine House, which fascinated Crowley, was the local legend that it was built on the site of a ruined church that had been struck by lightning, and that the house was supposedly plagued by supernatural occurrences and restless spirits. Some tales even whispered of dark rituals performed there before Crowley's time. For a man who reveled in the liminal and the shadowy, this was less a deterrent and more an engraved invitation. It offered the perfect backdrop for his intense magical ceremonies, a place where the veil between worlds might already be thin, or at least easily thinned. Imagine the estate agent trying to sell this property. And it comes with an authentic haunting, great for entertaining certain types of guests. You might even think this would deter a sane person, but Crowley was, by all accounts, not entirely interested in sanity as defined by polite society. With Boleskine House as his new canvas, Crowley meticulously began to transform it into his personal temple, his laboratory for the soul. The mundane aspects of daily life, though necessary, were merely a backdrop to the true purpose of his residency. You visualize him meticulously setting up his magical implements, arranging his books of arcane lore, and designating specific rooms for specific rituals. The library would undoubtedly be filled with dusty tomes on Kabbalah, alchemy, and ancient Egyptian magic, perhaps even a few scandalous French novels hidden discreetly. The air, heavy with the scent of old paper and esoteric herbs, would thrum with an almost palpable energy. This wasn't just a home, it was a stage for his life's grand performance, a continuous, albeit often tedious, magical drama. His days in Boleskine were characterized by a rigorous, almost monastic schedule, surprisingly unchaotic for a man infamous for his hedonistic tendencies. He engaged in long periods of meditation, profound studies, and the meticulous performance of complex ceremonial magic. These were not quick spells or simple incantations. These were prolonged, arduous rituals, sometimes lasting for weeks or even months, designed to evoke specific entities or achieve particular states of consciousness. You can almost feel the quiet intensity of his focus, the deep breathing, the muttered chants, the meticulous attention to detail as he followed ancient magical texts. One might even describe it as an early form of extreme self-improvement, but with considerably more candles and less kale. These rituals, he believed, were designed to tap into astral currents and telluric energies, invisible forces that he thought permeated the earth and the cosmos. He sought to bend these energies to his will, to gain knowledge, power, and ultimately spiritual enlightenment. This was the true purpose of his withdrawal to this remote Scottish abode. Historiadores aimed to discutum a genuine efficacy of Crowley's magical practices, with some dismissing them as elaborate psychological exercises or outright delusions, while others acknowledge their profound impact on Western esotericism and the countercultural movements of the 20th century. Was he truly communing with spirits? Or was he merely a master of self-hypnosis and psychological manipulation? The debate, like a slow-burning incense stick, continues to smolder. Crowley's presence at Boleskine House, though largely unnoticed by the wider world at the time, was a significant historical detail in the unfolding narrative of the Loch Ness mystery. He brought a unique, occult dimension to a place that would, years later, become a global hotspot for cryptid hunters and curious tourists. His early and deeply personal encounters with the mysterious energies of the loch, long before its creature achieved celebrity status, provide a fascinating counterpoint to the later, more materialistic searches for Nessie. He was, in his own way, one of the earliest investigators of the loch's profound secrets, though his methods involved less sonar and more ceremonial daggers. He was building his own connection, unseen and unrecorded by the outside world, to the very essence of the deep, dark water, unknowingly setting the stage for his subtle, yet profound experience with whatever lurked beneath. With Boleskine House firmly under his peculiar dominion, Aleister Crowley, the self-proclaimed Great Beast, settled into a routine that, to an outsider, might have appeared remarkably dull. You witness him now, not amidst orgiastic revelry or scandalous escapades, but engrossed in a meticulous, almost monastic existence. His days were structured around a rigorous schedule of magical practices, deep contemplation, and extensive scholarly work. Imagine the quiet hum of his presence, the scratch of his pen on parchment as he filled countless notebooks with his thoughts, rituals, and philosophical musings. This was the disciplined life of a true practitioner, not merely a flamboyant showman. though he certainly had his moments. His early morning hours might be dedicated to intense meditation, perhaps facing the vast expanse of Loch Ness, feeling its cold, ancient presence, convinced it held keys to elemental forces. You can almost hear the soft, rhythmic chanting, not loud or dramatic, but a low, resonant murmur designed to align his own energies with those of the surrounding landscape. A widely recognized historical fact about Crowley's time at Boleskine was his deep engagement with a complex system of ceremonial magic known as the Abramelin operation. This lengthy and arduous ritual, requiring months of purification, prayer, and invocation, was designed to enable the practitioner to achieve knowledge and conversation of your holy guardian angel. It wasn't a quick spell for wealth or power. It was a profound spiritual undertaking, demanding immense discipline and isolation. You picture him, perhaps, clad in simple robes, sitting within a consecrated space, surrounded by specific symbols and incense, the air thick with the scent of frankincense and myrrh. He wasn't just performing a ritual, he was constructing an entire reality within the walls of Boleskine, attempting to bridge the gap between the mundane and the divine. And if you've ever tried to stick to a New Year's resolution for more than a week, you can appreciate the sheer, stubborn will involved in a multi-month magical operation. It's a testament to his dedication, if nothing else. His intent was clear: to channel the profound energies he believed emanated from the very fabric of the earth, and more specifically, from the dark, deep waters of the loch itself. Crowley theorized that certain geographical locations, especially those with ancient histories or unique geological features like Loch Ness, served as powerful conduits for telluric currents, unseen lines of energy that crisscrossed the planet. He sought to tap into these, to harness them for his magical workings, believing they could amplify his invocations and facilitate contact with non-human intelligences. You can almost feel him straining, not physically, but mentally, spiritually, trying to attune himself to the subtle vibrations of the land, to hear the silent hum of the ancient world beneath his feet. He wasn't just living by the lake. He was attempting to live with it, to commune with its deepest, most primal essence. During this period, his partner, Rose Edith Kelly, occasionally joined him at Boleskine, though their relationship was often tumultuous and marked by her own mystical experiences. Rose, who was herself sensitive to unseen forces, had played a pivotal role in some of Crowley's most significant magical breakthroughs, famously going into trance states and channeling messages that would form the basis of his philosophical system. Her presence would have added another layer to the already charged atmosphere of Boleskine, a second pair of eyes, or perhaps a different kind of lens, through which to perceive the subtle shifts in energy that Crowley was so intent on observing. A curious eccentricity associated with Crowley, and particularly with Rose Kelly, was her initial discovery of the entity Aiwass, which Crowley later claimed dictated the Book of the Law to him. Her sensitivity to these unseen forces, though often perplexing to Crowley, certainly added to the belief that Boleskine was a place where the veil between worlds was unusually thin. Imagine trying to conduct a meticulous ritual while your significant other is randomly channeling ancient spirits. It adds a certain spice to the domestic arrangements, wouldn't you say? Rose Edith Kelly was mentioned here in relation to the magical experiments and challenges that shaped Crowley's early experiences at Boleskine and his understanding of spiritual forces. The solitude of Boleskine, combined with the immense power of the loch, created a unique crucible for Crowley's explorations. He believed that the sheer depth and age of Loch Ness, its often turbulent waters, and the mystery of its undiscovered life forms, long before the monster became a household name, contributed to its potent magical aura. He wasn't looking for a plesiosaur, he was looking for something far more esoteric, something that resonated with his understanding of elemental spirits and hidden dimensions. He was, in essence, preparing the terrain, not just for his rituals, but for an experience that would transcend the ordinary, something beyond the comprehensible by conventional means. He was unknowingly priming the pump for his own unique encounter with whatever lay beneath the surface, not as a physical beast, but as an energetic presence. Historiadors aim to discutum the true nature of Crowley's successes at Boleskine. Were they genuine manifestations of magical power, elaborate exercises in self-delusion, or perhaps profound psychological transformations achieved through extreme discipline? Some scholars interpret his experiences as deep dives into the subconscious, while others argue for a more literal reading of his magical claims, particularly in light of his subsequent influence on esoteric movements. The debate, much like the loch itself, remains deep and somewhat murky. What is certain is that the intensity of his focus and the peculiar nature of his chosen home were creating an atmosphere ripe for the unexpected, for something that would defy easy explanation. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the repetitive, almost hypnotic nature of his rituals began to subtly alter the very fabric of Boleskine House, and perhaps even the perception of the loch itself. The air inside might grow heavy, thick with the residue of incense and focused intent. The sounds outside, the wind howling across the loch, the distant cry of a deer, would become integrated into his meditative states, no longer mere background noise, but part of the larger symphony of existence he was attempting to comprehend and control. He was, in essence, tuning himself and his environment to a different frequency, a frequency where the veil between worlds thinned and where the mundane gave way to the truly magnificent or terrifying. He was opening doors, not with a key, but with sheer will, and he was completely unaware of what might step through. The ground was being prepared, the energies were coalescing, and the stage was being set for a very personal and unsettling encounter with something ancient and powerful, lurking within, or perhaps just beyond, the depths of the enigmatic Loch Ness. As you continue to observe Aleister Crowley from your comfortable vantage point, you notice the rhythm of his life at Boleskine House settling into a profound, almost hypnotic stillness. The frenetic energy that once defined his Sicilian escapades seems to have dissipated, replaced by a quiet intensity. You feel the vast, encompassing presence of Loch Ness stretching out before you, an immense body of water, dark and often inscrutable, reflecting the leaden Scottish skies. This is not the sparkling, inviting blue of a Mediterranean sea. It is a deep, peaty brown, a color that seems to absorb light and sound, holding its secrets close. The surface, at times, is like glass, smooth and undisturbed, a perfect mirror reflecting the ancient trees on its banks and the low-hanging clouds. At other times, it can be whipped into a furious, frothing frenzy by sudden, violent winds, its calm deceptive, its power immense. You witness Crowley's daily routine unfolding against this backdrop. He might spend hours simply gazing out from his window or from the shore, observing the subtle shifts in the loch's temperament. He's not looking for anything specific in a conventional sense. He's listening to the silence, feeling the vibrations. For him, this vast expanse of water wasn't just a geographical feature. It was a living entity, a reservoir of ancient energies, a giant liquid battery waiting to be tapped. He was trying to sense its mood, its hidden currents, its deep, cold secrets. You can almost feel the profound boredom that might set in for a lesser man, watching the water for hours on end, waiting for something that might never appear. But for Crowley, this was a form of active meditation, a deep listening exercise. He was attempting to tune his own consciousness to the loch's frequency, much like trying to find that one elusive radio station that only plays ancient Celtic chants. A widely recognized historical fact about Loch Ness is its immense depth and volume. It is the largest freshwater loch in Scotland by volume, containing more water than all the lakes of England and Wales combined. It plunges to depths of over 230 meters, around 755 feet, in places, making it one of the deepest lakes in Europe. Imagine that. A vast, dark, cold world beneath the surface, largely unexplored even today. This profound depth, combined with the constant input of peaty runoff from the surrounding hills, which gives the water its characteristic murkiness, makes visibility notoriously poor, even just a few feet below the surface. It's the perfect natural hideout, isn't it? A place where anything or nothing could lurk, perpetually obscured from inquisitive eyes. You could probably hide an entire fleet of sunken Roman galleys down there, and no one would be the wiser. This deep, dark, and often undisturbed nature of the loch contributed significantly to its aura of mystery, long before any specific monster gained notoriety. For Crowley, this inherent hiddenness was not merely a physical characteristic, but a metaphysical one. He believed the loch's abyssal depths were a perfect metaphor for the subconscious mind, a place where hidden forces and primordial entities resided, waiting to be acknowledged or, indeed, invoked. He wasn't interested in splashing around with a net. He was aiming to commune with the very spirit of the water itself. A curious eccentricity attributed to the loch by local folklore, and perhaps embraced by Crowley, was that its waters, despite Scotland's often freezing winters, rarely, if ever, freeze over. This was often seen as a mystical property, a sign of its deep churning life, or perhaps a hint of powerful geothermal activity beneath its surface, maintaining a constant, unsettling warmth. It certainly adds to the mystique, doesn't it? Almost as if the loch itself is breathing, a vast, living entity. Crowley's quiet presence at Boleskine, his intense focus on the loch, created a peculiar counterpoint to the eventual public frenzy that would engulf the area. While the world would later hunt for a physical creature, Crowley was engaged in a more subtle internal search for esoteric truths, for hidden dimensions of reality that he believed manifested in places of profound natural power. His rituals were a form of deep listening, an attempt to resonate with whatever ancient presence resided within the loch, or perhaps was merely reflected by it. He was probing, not with sonar, but with spells and meditation, trying to pierce the veil of the mundane, It's almost comical, isn't it, to think of the great beast sitting quietly, practically meditating by a lake, like a very intense and slightly menacing Zen master. Historiadores aim to discutum the extent to which geographical features, like the unique characteristics of Loch Ness, genuinely influence the development of local folklore and belief systems. Is it merely that a mysterious environment naturally sparks the imagination, or do these places truly possess an intangible quality, a kind of inherent numinous power that resonates with human consciousness? The very depth and obscurity of Loch Ness made it a perfect canvas for projecting fears, hopes, and grand narratives long before the first blurry photograph appeared. It was a blank slate for the subconscious, waiting for a compelling story to be written upon its surface. The calm of Loch Ness around Boleskine House was therefore far from inert for Crowley. It was a charged calm, pregnant with potential, a subtle tension underlying the apparent tranquility. Every ripple, every shift in the light, every distant sound carried a potential message for him, a clue to the deeper workings of the universe. He was cultivating a heightened state of awareness, honing his senses to perceive the imperceptible, to feel the gentle hum of unseen forces. He was, in essence, preparing himself for contact, not with a creature of flesh and blood, but with an entity of spirit and energy, a manifestation of the loch's own ancient soul. He was readying himself for something beyond the ordinary, something that would transcend the simple act of looking at water. The stage was set, the atmosphere was charged, and the profound, silent anticipation of the loch itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Crowley's next move, or for something to move it. You have settled into the quiet, almost meditative rhythm of Boleskine House with Aleister Crowley, a man whose senses, honed by years of rigorous magical training and intense self-discipline, were acutely attuned to the subtle energies of his environment. Imagine him, perhaps during a particularly deep session of contemplation, or just as the sun dipped below the rugged hills, casting long, eerie shadows across the dark waters of the loch. The air itself might feel different, charged with a faint, almost imperceptible hum, a shift in the very fabric of reality that only someone like Crowley, with his particular blend of obsession and sensitivity, could detect. It wasn't a sound, not a visual apparition, but something far more primal, a sensation that resonated deep within his bones, a quiet but undeniable vibration. This sensation was not the gentle lapping of waves, nor the familiar creak of old timber in the house. It was a disturbance in the profound stillness of the loch, an energetic ripple emanating from its immense, murky depths. For a moment, you almost feel it too, a phantom coldness, a pressure in the air, a whisper of something ancient and immense stirring far below the surface. Crowley, ever the meticulous observer of the unseen, would not have dismissed this as a mere draft or an overactive imagination. His entire life was dedicated to discerning the subtle from the obvious, the arcane from the mundane. He would have paused, perhaps with a slight tilt of his head, eyes unblinking, attempting to pinpoint the source of this profound anomaly. He was, in essence, trying to take the pulse of the loch, and he was finding it distinctly abnormal. He knew, with an almost instinctual certainty, that this was not merely a large fish or a trick of the light. This was a presence. For Crowley, steeped as he was in esoteric philosophy, This wasn't a matter for zoology. He would have immediately interpreted this peculiar vibration through the lens of his occult worldview, a manifestation of an elemental spirit, a powerful genius Loshi, the spirit of the place, or perhaps even a deep-seated telluric current being momentarily disturbed by something vast and ancient. He didn't think of a plesiosaur. He thought of a cosmic entity. A widely recognized historical fact about Crowley's magical system was his belief in and attempts to invoke elemental spirits, particularly those associated with specific locations or natural phenomena. He viewed the natural world as teeming with intelligent forces, and the deeper and more mysterious the location, the more potent these forces were likely to be. His daily rituals at Boleskine were often aimed at establishing communication or control over such entities. Imagine trying to explain to the local postman that you're just connecting with the elemental earth spirits. It certainly spices up the daily errands. You visualize him perhaps extending his hand, not to touch, but to feel the subtle energy, his mind racing to categorize and understand this unique emanation. Was it benevolent, malevolent, or simply indifferent? An ancient force stirring in its slumber. He would have consulted his internal lexicon of magical symbols and correspondences, attempting to draw parallels with ancient lore, Gnostic texts, or even obscure alchemical treatises. This was his version of a scientific inquiry, albeit one conducted on the astral plane. He wasn't reaching for a camera, he was reaching for his ceremonial dagger, or perhaps his book of invocations, ready to engage on an entirely different level. A curious eccentricity of Crowley's practices was his use of scrying or crystal gazing to gain insight into hidden phenomena. He might have tried to use a black mirror or a crystal ball, perhaps even the very surface of the loch itself, as a medium to gain a clearer vision of this sensed presence. He wouldn't be looking for scales or flippers, but for symbolic forms, energy patterns, or even glimpses of its true spiritual nature. He believed that the physical world was merely a gross manifestation of deeper, more subtle realities. And so, the monster for him would have been a mere shadow of its true ethereal form. One might even quip that he was trying to dial up the monster on his psychic telephone, only to find the line busy with cosmic static. This particular experience at Boleskine House, this profound feeling of an unseen presence in the loch, would have been a highly significant event for Crowley, perhaps even validating his choice of this remote and enigmatic location. It reinforced his conviction that he was living in a place imbued with powerful ancient magic, a place where the ordinary laws of reality seemed to bend to accommodate something truly extraordinary. It was his personal confirmation that the loch was not just a body of water, but a living, breathing, profoundly mysterious entity ripe for occult exploration. He might have felt a thrill, a deep sense of satisfaction at having made contact, however subtle, with something beyond the veil of mundane existence. Historiadores aimed to debate the nature of such sensings experienced by mystics and occultists throughout history. Are these genuine paranormal experiences, a form of psychic perception tapping into unseen realities? Or are they profound psychological phenomena, products of intense concentration, belief, and the brain's remarkable capacity to create meaningful experiences from ambiguous stimuli? Some scholars might view Crowley's experience as a vivid example of autosuggestion, while others might consider it a testament to his heightened intuitive abilities, a connection to the collective unconscious, or a forgotten stratum of consciousness. The line between profound mystical experience and elaborate delusion is often as murky as the waters of Loch Ness itself. For Crowley, however, there was no doubt. This gentle, unsettling vibration was a direct communication from the loch itself, a stirring of its ancient soul. It was a confirmation that his esoteric endeavors at Boleskine were not in vain, that he was indeed tapping into forces both primal and profound. He was convinced that he had made contact, not with a creature of flesh and blood that would later grace sensational headlines, but with something far more fundamental, an ancient spirit of the water, a guardian of the depths. The quiet intensity of this experience, this subtle awakening of a profound presence, left an indelible mark on his perception of Loch Ness. It transformed the lake from a mere geographical feature into a living, conscious entity, one that he had now, in his own unique way, encountered. The stage was now set, not for a public spectacle, but for Crowley's private, intense, and deeply personal engagement with the very essence of the monster he believed inhabited the deep. Having sensed that profound, unsettling vibration emanating from the depths, Aleister Crowley now finds himself on the precipice of a more direct encounter, though one entirely unique to his esoteric worldview. You accompany him, feeling the air around Boleskine House grow thick with anticipation, not of a monstrous splash, but of a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in reality. For Crowley, the monster of Loch Ness was never going to be a mere creature of flesh and bone, something to be hunted by sonar or photographed by amateur enthusiasts. His understanding of the universe transcended such mundane classifications. He saw the loch as a vast repository of primordial energy, and any manifestation from its depths would, by his logic, be an expression of that fundamental power, a spirit of the water itself. Imagine him now, not with binoculars, but perhaps in a deep trance, or amidst a ceremonial invocation, his mind acting as the primary lens through which this entity revealed itself. He might have experienced it as a profound vision, a vivid astral projection, or a direct telepathic communion. The monster for him would take on a symbolic form, perhaps a vast, shadowy consciousness, an ancient intelligence residing in the cold, dark waters since time immemorial. It could manifest as a swirling vortex of energy, a fleeting image of a primordial serpent of immense power, or simply an overwhelming sensation of vastness and antiquity that permeated his very being. This wasn't about seeing a neck and a head. It was about feeling the very soul of the abyss. He was, in essence, trying to get a psychic fingerprint of whatever haunted the deep. A widely recognized historical fact about Aleister Crowley's magical system, particularly his Golden Dawn and later Thelemic teachings, was the concept of egregores, or thought forms, entities created or sustained by collective human belief and emotion. For Crowley, a recurring legend like that of a water monster could over centuries condense into a tangible astral entity, a living thought form. He might have perceived the monster not as a biological animal, but as a powerful egregore of the loch, nourished by ancient fears, legends, and the sheer cumulative psychic energy of all who had ever pondered its depths. He wasn't looking for a paleontological specimen. He was looking for a psycho-spiritual construct, a being that existed primarily on the plane of consciousness, influencing the physical world in subtle ways. It's a bit like believing that if enough people believe in Santa Claus, he actually manifests as a tangible energy field of gift-giving intention. A bit more complicated than a simple elf, isn't it? Crowley's encounter would therefore have been deeply personal, an exchange between his highly attuned consciousness and the consciousness of the Loch's ancient guardian. He wouldn't have been looking for proof for a scientific journal. He would have been seeking validation for his own esoteric system, confirmation that the universe was indeed alive with intelligent forces, just waiting for the right key to unlock their secrets. He might have communicated with it, not through spoken words, but through intent, symbols, or even a profound empathy with its ancient existence. The conversation wouldn't be verbal, it would be a resonance, a mirroring of deep truths. His diaries, if he recorded this specific event, would likely contain cryptic references, allegorical descriptions, and complex magical diagrams, far removed from the sensational eyewitness accounts that would later dominate the news. He might describe the entity as the dweller of the abyss, or the serpent of the depths, names imbued with symbolic weight rather than zoological precision. His interest would be in its magical properties, its connection to elemental earth and water, its potential as a source of arcane power, or its role in the spiritual ecosystem of the region. He wasn't charting its migratory patterns, he was charting its astral coordinates. A curious eccentricity related to Crowley's magical circle was his collaboration with individuals like Victor Newberg, a poet and fellow occultist, who engaged in many intense and often dangerous magical experiments with Crowley. Newberg, despite his personal struggles, often served as Crowley's ritual partner and scryer, providing another lens through which Crowley could explore the astral planes. Though Newberg may not have been present for this specific Loch Ness encounter, his shared experiences with Crowley underscore the unique and often harrowing nature of their magical quests, where the lines between subjective experience and objective reality were constantly blurred. Victor Newberg was mentioned here in relation to the extreme and collaborative nature of Crowley's magical explorations, emphasizing the shared pursuit of esoteric truths that informed his unique perception of the monster. One might even wonder if Newberg ever had to tell Crowley, this astral projection really needs better catering. The profound contrast between Crowley's esoteric monster and the future public perception of Nessie is striking. While the world would clamor for blurry photographs and sonar readings of a physical beast, Crowley was engaging with something far more intangible, something that existed on a deeper, more spiritual plane. His monster was a manifestation of the very essence of the Loch, a spiritual entity that transcended the limitations of physical form. It was a testament to his unique capacity to find the occult in the mundane, to see magical significance where others saw only natural phenomena. He was not looking at the Loch, but through it, into another dimension. Historiadores aimed at debating the extent to which subjective mystical experiences, like those claimed by Crowley, can genuinely inform our understanding of reality, or if they are purely psychological phenomena. Is it possible that what Crowley perceived was a deeply personal symbolic manifestation of the Loch's inherent mystery, an archetype from the collective unconscious that resonated with his own esoteric beliefs? Or was he truly making contact with a sentient, non-physical intelligence? The answer, much like the visibility in the depths of Loch Ness, remains obscured, open to interpretation, and endless fascinating speculation. This debate isn't just about whether the monster exists. It's about how we define existence itself. For Crowley, this encounter, however it manifested, would have cemented his conviction that Boleskine House and Loch Ness were indeed powerful magical centers. It confirmed his belief that he had chosen correctly, that he was living on a nexus point where the veil between worlds was thin and where profound energies could be accessed and engaged. This unique, deeply personal experience with the monster of the Loch would have become a cherished secret, a validation of his life's work, and a testament to the fact that not all monsters are found with a camera. Some are found deep within the mind, or perhaps deep within the very soul of an ancient, mysterious body of water, waiting for the right, or perhaps the wrong, consciousness to call upon them. It was a quiet triumph for the great beast, a confirmation that the world was far more magical and mysterious than most dared to imagine. With the subtle yet profound vibration of the Loch's ancient presence still resonating in your senses, you observe Aleister Crowley retreat into the quiet sanctum of Boleskine House. This was the true aftermath of his unique encounter, not frantic calls to the press, nor attempts to capture a physical specimen, but a deeply internal process of assimilation and documentation. You see him now, not with the wild-eyed fervor one might expect from a great beast, but with the intense, almost scholarly focus of a man attempting to decipher a profound cosmic message. He would immerse himself in his study, surrounded by towering stacks of books, arcane charts, and the ever-present aroma of pipe tobacco and old parchment. He was processing the incomprehensible, attempting to fit an experience of the transcendent into the meticulously crafted framework of his magical system. Crowley was a prolific writer, a fact widely recognized by historians. He kept extensive diaries and journals, meticulously recording his magical workings, his visions, his philosophical insights, and even the mundane details of his daily life. These were not mere personal musings. They were the raw data of his spiritual and magical experiments, meticulously documented for future analysis, and he hoped for the enlightenment of future generations of Thelemites. Imagine the scratch of his fountain pen on thick, creamy paper, the soft rustle as he turned pages, sometimes pausing deep in thought, as if searching for the perfect word to capture an elusive truth. He wasn't just writing, he was performing an act of intellectual alchemy, transforming raw experience into codified knowledge. He probably had a more rigorous journaling habit than your average Instagram influencer, and certainly with more profound and less filtered content. His entries regarding the Loch's presence would be far from the typical eyewitness accounts. They would be replete with highly symbolic language, references to obscure magical texts, and perhaps even complex Kabbalistic diagrams. He might describe the monster not as a creature, but as a form, a force, or an intelligible energy. The encounter would be woven into the fabric of his Thelemic philosophy, perhaps seen as a manifestation of Nuit, the goddess of infinite space, or Hadit, the point within the circle representing the essence of existence. He would interpret it as a direct communication from an ancient, non-human intelligence, a validation of his belief that the universe was teeming with conscious entities beyond human comprehension. He wasn't just logging a sighting. He was recording a cosmic revelation. A curious eccentricity of Crowley's diaries and other magical writings was his frequent use of coded language, ciphers, and obscure allusions, often intertwined with complex astrological and numerological calculations. He might refer to the presence in the loch by a gematria value, a system where letters are assigned numerical values or a specific magical name known only to initiates. This wasn't merely to be secretive. It was part of his belief that certain truths were too potent for the uninitiated, or that the act of encoding itself imbued the text with magical power. Imagine trying to read his grocery list. It would probably involve invoking the spirit of cauliflower. This deliberate obfuscation makes interpreting his personal records a continuous challenge for scholars, adding another layer of mystery to his already enigmatic life. Crowley's approach fundamentally differed from the materialistic, physical search that would later consume the world's attention. While future generations would deploy sonar, underwater cameras, and even miniature submarines seeking a biological creature, Crowley was operating on an entirely different plane of investigation. He saw the physical manifestation, if any, as merely a shadow, cast by a far grander, more ethereal reality. For him, the monster was a spiritual entity, an ancient energy force, or a collective thought form, not a biological specimen. He wasn't trying to catch it, he was trying to understand, and perhaps even control it, or at least establish a working relationship with it. He probably chuckled at the idea of someone trying to harpoon an egregore. Historiadores aimed to scutum the reliability and interpretation of primary source documents, especially those as esoteric and personal as Crowley's diaries. How does one distinguish between genuine mystical experience, deliberate self-deception, psychological projection, or simply the fanciful musings of a highly imaginative mind? Some are found deep within the mind, or perhaps deep within the very soul of an ancient, mysterious body of water, waiting for the right, or perhaps the wrong, consciousness to call upon them. It was a quiet triumph for the great beast, a confirmation that the world was far more magical and mysterious than most dared to imagine. With the subtle yet profound vibration of the loch's ancient presence still resonating in your senses, you observe Aleister Crowley retreat into the quiet sanctum of Boleskine House. This was the true aftermath of his unique encounter, not frantic calls to the press, nor attempts to capture a physical specimen, but a deeply internal process of assimilation and documentation. You see him now, not with the wild-eyed fervor one might expect from a great beast, but with the intense, almost scholarly focus of a man attempting to decipher a profound cosmic message. He would immerse himself in his study, surrounded by towering stacks of books, arcane charts, and the ever-present aroma of pipe tobacco and old parchment. He was processing the incomprehensible, attempting to fit an experience of the transcendent into the meticulously crafted framework of his magical system. Crowley was a prolific writer, a fact widely recognized by historians. He kept extensive diaries and journals, meticulously recording his magical workings, his visions, his philosophical insights, and even the mundane details of his daily life. These were not mere personal musings. They were the raw data of his spiritual and magical experiments, meticulously documented for future analysis, and he hoped for the enlightenment of future generations of Thelemites. Imagine the scratch of his fountain pen on thick, creamy paper, the soft rustle as he turned pages, sometimes pausing deep in thought, as if searching for the perfect word to capture an elusive truth. He wasn't just writing, he was performing an act of intellectual alchemy, transforming raw experience into codified knowledge. He probably had a more rigorous journaling habit than your average Instagram influencer, and certainly with more profound and less filtered content. His entries regarding the loch's presence would be far from the typical eyewitness accounts. They would be replete with highly symbolic language, references to obscure magical texts, and perhaps even complex Kabbalistic diagrams. He might describe the monster not as a creature, but as a form, a force, or an intelligible energy. The encounter would be woven into the fabric of his Thelemic philosophy, perhaps seen as a manifestation of Nuit, the goddess of infinite space, or Hadit, the point within the circle representing the essence of existence. He would interpret it as a direct communication from an ancient, non-human intelligence, a validation of his belief that the universe was teeming with conscious entities beyond human comprehension. He wasn't just logging a sighting. He was recording a cosmic revelation. A curious eccentricity of Crowley's diaries and other magical writings was his frequent use of coded language, ciphers, and obscure allusions, often intertwined with complex astrological and numerological calculations. He might refer to the presence in the loch by a gematria value, a system where letters are assigned numerical values, or a specific magical name known only to initiates. This wasn't merely to be secretive. It was part of his belief that certain truths were too potent for the uninitiated, or that the act of encoding itself imbued the text with magical power. Imagine trying to read his grocery list. It would probably involve invoking the spirit of cauliflower. This deliberate obfuscation makes interpreting his personal records a continuous challenge for scholars, adding another layer of mystery to his already enigmatic life. Crowley's approach fundamentally differed from the materialistic, physical search that would later consume the world's attention. While future generations would deploy sonar, underwater cameras, and even miniature submarines seeking a biological creature, Crowley was operating on an entirely different plane of investigation. He saw the physical manifestation, if any, as merely a shadow, cast by a far grander, more ethereal reality. For him, the monster was a spiritual entity, an ancient energy force, or a collective thought form, not a biological specimen. He wasn't trying to catch it. He was trying to understand and perhaps even control it, or at least establish a working relationship with it. He probably chuckled at the idea of someone trying to harpoon an egregore. Historiadores aimed to scutum the reliability and interpretation of primary source documents, especially those as esoteric and personal as Crowley's diaries. How does one distinguish between genuine mystical experience, deliberate self-deception, psychological projection, or simply the fanciful musings of a highly imaginative mind? Can such subjective accounts ever provide objective historical data, or are they merely windows into the complex inner world of the individual? The debate often centers on whether to take Crowley's claims literally, metaphorically, or as a sophisticated form of performance art. It's a bit like trying to decide if Shakespeare's ghosts were literal spirits or just very effective dramatic devices. The murky depths of academic interpretation can be just as inscrutable as those of Loch Ness itself. For Crowley, however, the validity of his experience was beyond question. This encounter, whatever its precise nature, confirmed his place at the nexus of magical forces, a true magus capable of perceiving and interacting with the unseen. It solidified his belief that Boleskine House was indeed a site of immense magical potency, a sacred space where the veil between worlds was thin enough for profound contact. He carried this secret with him, a personal truth far more significant than any fleeting newspaper headline. His monster was not for public consumption. It was a profound, intimate validation of his lifelong quest for esoteric knowledge and power. He had found his truth in the silent, ancient depths, and it was a truth far grander than any mere cryptid. While Aleister Crowley continued to meticulously record his esoteric encounters within the secluded walls of Boleskine House, convinced he had tapped into a profound spiritual dimension of the loch, the world outside was beginning to stir, not with whispers of astral entities, but with shouts of a very tangible, very physical beast. You are now transported from the quiet intensity of Crowley's study to the bustling, often chaotic, public sphere of 1933. Imagine the crisp Scottish air, suddenly thick with a new kind of energy, not magical, but media-driven. The serene tranquility of Loch Ness, once known primarily for its scenic beauty and ancient legends like that of St. Columba, was about to be irrevocably shattered by a series of sensational headlines. A widely recognized historical fact is that the modern legend of the Loch Ness Monster truly exploded into public consciousness in 1933, primarily due to an upgraded road along the loch's northern shore. Before this, the old road was narrow and winding, offering few clear views of the water. But with the completion of the new A82, a wider, faster highway, more people began to travel along the loch, and crucially, more people had opportunities to actually see something. This seemingly mundane piece of infrastructure acted like a giant, accidental searchlight, suddenly illuminating a mystery that had long lingered in local folklore, but remained largely unobserved by the masses. It was less about a monster appearing and more about eyeballs finally having a chance to be in the right place at the right time. You can almost hear the roar of early automobiles whizzing by, their occupants gazing out, hoping for a glimpse of something. The first significant catalyst for the modern frenzy was an article published in the Inverness Courier on May 2, 1933. It recounted the sighting by a local hotel manager, Mrs. Aldy McKay, who, along with her husband, claimed to have seen an enormous creature rolling and plunging in the loch's waters. She described it as a whale-like fish, something truly immense that caused a considerable commotion on the surface. This was not a quick glimpse. It was a sustained observation that left a deep impression, and just like a spark igniting dry tinder, this one report from a credible local set off a chain reaction. Suddenly, everyone had a story, or remembered a story, or knew someone who had a story. The initial ripple of curiosity quickly escalated into a tidal wave of public fascination. It was like the early days of the internet, but instead of viral cat videos, they had viral monster sightings. Soon after, in July of the same year, Another prominent sighting solidified the legend. Mr. George Spicer and his wife were driving along the loch when they claimed a huge, long-necked creature, about 25 feet long, crossed the road right in front of their car, heading towards the loch. They described it as having a body that humped and plunged as it moved. Imagine that. You're just driving along, perhaps thinking about what to have for dinner, and suddenly a real-life, dinosaur-like creature decides to jaywalk right in front of your vehicle. It certainly adds a certain je ne sais quoi to a Sunday drive, doesn't it? This particular sighting by a respectable London businessman added a layer of credibility and sensationalism that the local reports alone couldn't achieve. It was no longer just a Highland tale. It was a national, soon-to-be international phenomenon. The media, always keen for a captivating story, pounced on these reports with an almost insatiable appetite. Newspapers began to send reporters to the loch, offering rewards for photographs or definitive proof. The term Loch Ness Monster was coined around this time, and the creature quickly became a household name, synonymous with mystery and the unknown. This wasn't just news, it was entertainment, a thrilling diversion from the economic anxieties of the Great Depression. Everyone wanted to believe, everyone wanted to hear the latest update, and everyone, it seemed, had an opinion on whether Nessie was real or a grand hoax. You can almost picture Aleister Crowley, perhaps taking his morning tea by the window at Boleskine House, glancing at the headlines of the Inverness Courier or the Daily Mail. He would see the crude drawings, the sensationalized reports, the feverish speculation about a dinosaur or a prehistoric beast. A subtle, almost imperceptible smile might play on his lips. For him, this public frenzy must have seemed quaint. He, the man who believed he had communicated with the very essence of the loch, who had encountered its spirit on an astral plane, was now watching the mundane world scramble after a physical shadow. It was an amusing irony, a testament to the vast gulf between his esoteric understanding of reality and the common person's materialistic interpretation. He probably thought, "Oh, if they only knew what I truly saw." A curious eccentricity of the public reaction in 1933 was the sheer number of highly imaginative and sometimes contradictory descriptions offered by witnesses. Some saw humps, others long necks, some flippers, others strange, almost serpentine forms. This lack of consistency, while frustrating for those seeking definitive proof, only fueled the mystery and the debate. It allowed everyone to project their own ideas onto the elusive creature, ensuring that Nessie could be whatever anyone wanted it to be. It was the ultimate choose-your-own adventure story, played out in real time. Perhaps the beast was simply a master of disguise, or perhaps, as Crowley might have mused, it was a shape-shifting entity responding to the collective unconscious. Historiadores aimed at disputing the exact mechanisms by which the Loch Ness Monster legend gained such rapid and widespread traction in 1933. Was it a genuine series of misidentifications spurred by increased traffic, a cleverly orchestrated media hoax to boost tourism, or perhaps a psychological phenomenon of mass hysteria and suggestibility? Some argue that the new road, with its clear sight lines, allowed previously unnoticed natural phenomena like large waves or swimming animals to be misinterpreted. Others believe the economic climate made people more receptive to fantastical tales, a welcome escape from grim realities. The debate, like the monster itself, continues to evade a definitive, easy capture. And so, as the world roared with excitement over a potential prehistoric survivor, Aleister Crowley, from his quiet vantage point at Boleskine, remained profoundly unimpressed by the superficiality of the public's quest. He had, in his own unique and profoundly personal way, already found his monster. It wasn't a beast to be hunted or photographed. It was a spiritual truth, an ancient force, a manifestation of the loch's profound mysteries that resonated with his own magical ambitions. He had peered beyond the veil, and what he saw was far grander, far more terrifying, and ultimately far more deeply entrenched in the fabric of existence than any mere physical creature could ever be. The frenzy of 1933 was just a noisy, almost amusing distraction from the real, quiet magic he was already experiencing within the silent, deep heart of Loch Ness. He had already seen beyond the newsprint into the true abyss. As the public frenzy surrounding the Loch Ness Monster swelled in 1933, fed by newspaper headlines and sensational eyewitness accounts, the world clamored for irrefutable proof. You can almost feel the collective breath being held, the widespread desire for something tangible, something that would solidify the elusive creature from whispered legend into undeniable fact. This yearning for visual evidence would soon be answered, though not in the way many had hoped, nor with the clarity that science demanded. Instead, it was met with a blurred, enigmatic image that would become arguably the most iconic photograph of a cryptid in history, an image that would both ignite belief and sow the seeds of profound doubt. In April of 1934, just months after the initial explosion of sightings, the Daily Mail newspaper published a photograph that sent shockwaves across the globe. You see it now, a grainy black and white image, seemingly depicting a long, slender neck and a small head emerging from the murky waters of Loch Ness. This became instantly known as the surgeon's photograph, attributed to Robert Kenneth Wilson, a respected London gynecologist. A widely recognized historical fact is the immense impact and widespread distribution of this photograph, which, for decades, the term Loch Ness Monster was coined around this time, and the creature quickly became a household name, synonymous with mystery and the unknown. This wasn't just news, it was entertainment, a thrilling diversion from the economic anxieties of the Great Depression. Everyone wanted to believe, everyone wanted to hear the latest update, and everyone, it seemed, had an opinion on whether Nessie was real or a grand hoax. You can almost picture Aleister Crowley, perhaps taking his morning tea by the window at Boleskine House, glancing at the headlines of the Inverness Courier or the Daily Mail. He would see the crude drawings, the sensationalized reports, the feverish speculation about a dinosaur or a prehistoric beast. A subtle, almost imperceptible smile might play on his lips. For him, this public frenzy must have seemed quaint. He, the man who believed he had communicated with the very essence of the loch, who had encountered its spirit on an astral plane, was now watching the mundane world scramble after a physical shadow. It was an amusing irony, a testament to the vast gulf between his esoteric understanding of reality and the common person's materialistic interpretation. He probably thought, "Oh, if they only knew what I truly saw." A curious eccentricity of the public reaction in 1933 was the sheer number of highly imaginative, and sometimes contradictory descriptions offered by witnesses. Some saw humps, others long necks, some flippers, others strange, almost serpentine forms. This lack of consistency, while frustrating for those seeking definitive proof, only fueled the mystery and the debate. It allowed everyone to project their own ideas onto the elusive creature, ensuring that Nessie could be whatever anyone wanted it to be. It was the ultimate choose-your-own adventure story, played out in real time. Perhaps the beast was simply a master of disguise, or perhaps, as Crowley might have mused, it was a shape-shifting entity responding to the collective unconscious. Historiadores aimed at disputing the exact mechanisms by which the Loch Ness Monster legend gained such rapid and widespread traction in 1933. Was it a genuine series of misidentifications spurred by increased traffic, a cleverly orchestrated media hoax to boost tourism, or perhaps a psychological phenomenon of mass hysteria and suggestibility? Some argue that the new road, with its clear sight lines, allowed previously unnoticed natural phenomena like large waves or swimming animals to be misinterpreted. Others believe the economic climate made people more receptive to fantastical tales, a welcome escape from grim realities. The debate, like the monster itself, continues to evade a definitive, easy capture. And so, as the world roared with excitement over a potential prehistoric survivor, Aleister Crowley, from his quiet vantage point at Boleskine, remained profoundly unimpressed by the superficiality of the public's quest. He had, in his own unique and profoundly personal way, already found his monster. It wasn't a beast to be hunted or photographed. It was a spiritual truth, an ancient force, a manifestation of the loch's profound mysteries that resonated with his own magical ambitions. He had peered beyond the veil, and what he saw was far grander, far more terrifying, and ultimately far more deeply entrenched in the fabric of existence than any mere physical creature could ever be. The frenzy of 1933 was just a noisy, almost amusing distraction from the real, quiet magic he was already experiencing within the silent, deep heart of Loch Ness. He had already seen beyond the newsprint, into the true abyss. As the public frenzy surrounding the Loch Ness Monster swelled in 1933, fed by newspaper headlines and sensational eyewitness accounts, the world clamored for irrefutable proof. You can almost feel the collective breath being held, the widespread desire for something tangible, something that would solidify the elusive creature from whispered legend into undeniable fact. This yearning for visual evidence would soon be answered, though not in the way many had hoped, nor with the clarity that science demanded. Instead, it was met with a blurred, enigmatic image that would become arguably the most iconic photograph of a cryptid in history, an image that would both ignite belief and sow the seeds of profound doubt. In April of 1934, just months after the initial explosion of sightings, the Daily Mail newspaper published a photograph that sent shockwaves across the globe. You see it now, a grainy black and white image, seemingly depicting a long, slender neck and a small head emerging from the murky waters of Loch Ness. This became instantly known as the surgeon's photograph, attributed to Robert Kenneth Wilson, a respected London gynecologist. A widely recognized historical fact is the immense impact and widespread distribution of this photograph, which, for decades, the debate continues, much like the monster itself, swimming in circles in the depths of collective consciousness. For Crowley, this photo would merely underscore the gulf between the mundane and the magical. While the world marveled at a supposed dinosaur, he continued his work at Boleskine House, attempting to commune with the true spiritual essence of the loch, a force far more profound and mysterious than any physical beast, however iconic. Dr. Robert Kenneth Wilson, the credited surgeon of the famous photo, was merely a conduit for the world's materialistic obsession, a figure who unknowingly propagated a popular myth that paled in comparison to the hidden truths Crowley believed he was unearthing. Crowley would have considered it a distraction, a sideshow to the real occult drama playing out in the deep, dark heart of Loch Ness, far from the prying eyes of the sensationalist press. He knew the real monster wasn't in a photograph. It was in the very fabric of existence. As Aleister Crowley, the ever-enigmatic recluse of Boleskine House, continued his private, esoteric explorations into the depths of Loch Ness's spiritual essence, the world outside was consumed by a far more public and rather mundane pursuit of the monster. You now witness the curious evolution of Nessie from a local legend into a global tourism phenomenon, a testament to the power of myth and the enduring human fascination with the unknown. Imagine the quiet Highland Loch, once primarily a backdrop for sheep farming and ancient tales, suddenly teeming with a new kind of activity. Tourists, eager for a glimpse of the elusive creature, bringing with them a wave of commerce and entrepreneurial spirit. A widely recognized historical fact is the dramatic increase in tourism to the Loch Ness area following the sensational sightings of 1933 and the publication of the surgeon's photograph in 1934. What was once a relatively remote part of Scotland quickly transformed into a bustling hub of activity. Hotels and guest houses saw an unprecedented boom, local businesses flourished, and souvenir shops sprung up like mushrooms after a Scottish rain shower, all eager to capitalize on the monster craze. Nessie became an economic engine, a mythical cash cow for the region. You can almost hear the excited chatter of tourists, the clicks of cameras, often pointed uselessly at empty water, and the jingling of cash registers as Nessie merchandise flew off the shelves. It was a gold rush, but for monster-themed trinkets. The commercialization of Nessie was swift and comprehensive. Soon, you could find everything from Nessie-themed postcards and tea towels to miniature plush toys and even Nessie repellent, which, one might gently suggest, was likely just water with a very optimistic label. Boat tours were launched, promising to take eager monster hunters to the prime sighting spots, even if the only thing they usually spotted was other tourists. The local community, while perhaps initially skeptical, quickly embraced their newfound celebrity monster, recognizing the invaluable boost it brought to their livelihoods. It was a remarkable example of how a piece of folklore, however unproven, could generate real-world economic prosperity. Who needs a thriving fishing industry when you have a cryptid? Among the figures who recognized and even contributed to the scientific legitimization and cultural integration of Nessie was Sir Peter Scott. While not a hunter or a direct witness, Sir Peter Scott was a highly respected naturalist, conservationist, and artist, widely recognized for his work in wildlife preservation and his role in establishing the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF. A notable historical fact about Sir Peter Scott is his involvement with the Loch Ness phenomenon in the 1970s. He, along with other scientists, proposed a scientific name for the creature, Nesceteris rhombopteryx, based on earlier sonar contacts and alleged photographic evidence. This act of giving the monster a binomial classification, typically reserved for known species, was a deliberate attempt to legitimize the search and encourage further scientific investigation, even if it was done with a hint of speculative optimism. Sir Peter Scott was mentioned here for his crucial role in lending scientific legitimacy to the monster, contrasting with Crowley's occult perspective. You can almost imagine Sir Peter Scott, a man of profound scientific integrity, approaching the Nessie phenomenon with a blend of professional curiosity and perhaps a touch of whimsy. He wasn't dismissing it outright. He was trying to bring a scientific framework to a mystery that often felt more at home in sensational tabloids. His involvement lent a serious, almost academic air to the monster hunt, transforming it from a mere curiosity into a potential scientific discovery. It was like giving a mythical beast a proper suit and tie before sending it to a scientific conference. This move, however controversial among some scientists, further cemented Nessie's place in the public consciousness, elevating it beyond simple folklore into something that might, just might, be a real, as yet undiscovered animal. The contrast between the approach of Sir Peter Scott and Aleister Crowley is stark and quite amusing if you stop to consider it. Scott, the meticulous naturalist, attempting to classify a creature based on scant evidence and sonar pings. Crowley, the esoteric occultist, attempting to commune with its astral form. One was trying to put Nessie in a textbook, the other was trying to put it in a spell book. Both, in their own unique ways, were searching for truth in the depths, but their methodologies couldn't have been more different. Crowley would likely have scoffed at the idea of giving a spiritual entity a Latin name, preferring his own more symbolic and obscure designations. He probably found the whole scientific pursuit rather pedestrian. A curious eccentricity related to Nessie tourism is the annual Monster Watch events, where enthusiasts gather with binoculars and cameras, sometimes for days, hoping to catch a glimpse. These events, often accompanied by local festivals and Sealies, blend serious monster hunting with good-natured community celebration, creating a unique atmosphere of hope, camaraderie, and often glorious disappointment. It's a bit like a very patient and very scenic wild goose chase, but everyone brings good snacks. The social bonding, perhaps, is more important than the actual sighting. Historiadores aim to dispute the ethical implications of commercializing unproven phenomena like the Loch Ness Monster. Does it exploit public credulity, or is it merely a harmless form of entertainment and local economic development? Some argue that the tourism industry around Nessie has inadvertently perpetuated a hoax, while others see it as a legitimate cultural product that benefits the local community and fulfills a universal human need for wonder and mystery. The debate, like a particularly persistent tourist asking for directions to the nearest Nessie gift shop, continues to make itself heard. For Aleister Crowley, observing this explosion of public interest from his solitary abode, the shift would have been a fascinating, if slightly irritating, development. While the world rushed to capture blurry images and buy plastic souvenirs of a mythical beast, he continued his quiet, profound work, convinced he had already touched the very essence of the loch's ancient spirit. The economic boom and the scientific legitimization of Nessie were mere distractions, a superficial layer atop a truth he believed was far deeper, far more ancient, and utterly beyond the grasp of ordinary human understanding. Sir Peter Scott might have given the monster a name, but Crowley believed he had understood its very soul, a connection far more profound than any classification. The real monster for Crowley remained hidden, not just in the depths of the loch, but in the depths of consciousness itself, waiting for those with the unique perception to truly see it. As Aleister Crowley, the great beast of Boleskine, quietly faded from the Scottish landscape, leaving behind a house brimming with his peculiar energies and a loch that had yielded its own unique secrets to his sensitive mind, the world outside simply refused to let the enigma of Nessie rest. You watch now as the legend, far from diminishing, intensifies, taking on a life of its own, independent of esoteric rituals or academic musings. The quiet hum of curiosity that began in 1933 began to grow into a louder, more insistent drone, attracting not just curious tourists, but serious, dedicated, and often wonderfully eccentric monster hunters. Imagine the post-war era, the 1950s and 60s, a time when technology was advancing, offering new tools to probe old mysteries. The surgeon's photograph, despite its lingering doubts, had imprinted an image of Nessie firmly onto the global consciousness, making it a household name. But a static image, however iconic, only whetted the appetite for more. People wanted movement, dynamism, a sense of the creature truly existing, swimming, living in the depths. And that hunger would be briefly, tantalizingly satisfied by a man named Tim Dinsdale. A widely recognized historical fact is the celebrated film footage captured by Tim Dinsdale in 1960. Dinsdale, a former RAF engineer and a dedicated Nessie enthusiast, had been drawn to the loch, convinced he could capture the elusive creature on film. You picture him now, perhaps, patiently waiting on the hills, overlooking the loch, probably bundled against the Scottish chill, armed with a rather clunky 16mm cine camera. It wasn't the sleek, high-definition equipment of today, but for its time, it was cutting edge for an amateur. He was a man with a mission, not just a casual observer, but a hopeful participant in the unfolding drama of the loch. On April 23, 1960, Dinsdale's patience seemingly paid off. He claimed to have spotted a large, dark hump moving against the far shore of the loch, a distinct shape that seemed to be traveling with considerable speed. He immediately began to film. The resulting footage, though grainy and distant, became a sensation. You see it now, a dark, elongated object moving steadily across the water, creating a discernible wake behind it. It's not a clear shot of a plesiosaur head or even a definable body shape, but it is undeniably something large and moving. It's the kind of footage that makes you lean forward, squinting, trying to coax more detail out of the blurry pixels, much like trying to figure out if that far-off smudge on your glasses is a bird or just, well, a smudge. The impact of Dinsdale's film was immediate and profound. Unlike the static surgeon's photograph, this was motion. This was tangible evidence of something alive and moving in the loch. It revitalized the hunt, drawing in new enthusiasts and even prompting more serious scientific interest. It offered a dynamic glimpse, however fleeting, of what Nessie might truly be. For many, it was the most compelling visual evidence yet, a crucial piece of the puzzle that suggested the monster was not just a myth, but a living, breathing mystery. Tim Dinsdale was mentioned here for his famous film that added another layer to the public legend of Nessie. The film was even officially analyzed. A curious eccentricity about the Dinsdale film is that the Royal Air Force, RAF, Joint Air Reconnaissance Intelligence Center, JARIC, conducted an examination of the footage. Their conclusion, though cautious, stated that the object was probably an animate object and estimated its size to be roughly 16 feet long. This official, albeit equivocal, endorsement from a military intelligence unit added a powerful layer of credibility to Dinsdale's claim. It wasn't just a blurry home video anymore, it was a military-analyzed enigma. Imagine a group of serious, no-nonsense military intelligence officers poring over fuzzy footage of a potential lake monster. It has a certain charm, doesn't it? Perhaps they had a very specific protocol for unidentified aquatic phenomena. However, despite this promising analysis, the Dinsdale film, much like the surgeon's photograph before it, remained firmly in a gray zone. It proved something was moving, but it couldn't definitively prove what. Skeptics argued it could be a boat, a large animal like an otter or deer, or even a flock of birds. The distance and the quality of the film left ample room for alternative explanations. It was tantalizing but not conclusive. It was a clear demonstration of movement, but not a clear demonstration of creature. It became and remains an object of perpetual debate, a piece of evidence that generates more questions than answers. And it is precisely here in this swirling vortex of public fascination and inconclusive evidence that the profound irony of Aleister Crowley's earlier experiences at Boleskine House becomes most apparent. While Tim Dinsdale's film ignited a global conversation about a physical creature, Crowley's intimate esoteric encounter with the loch's spiritual essence remained entirely unknown to the world. You reflect on this contrast. One man painstakingly capturing a blurry physical shadow, the other silently communing with an unseen elemental force. Crowley's monster was a manifestation of ancient energies, a profound spiritual truth far removed from the sensational headlines and scientific debates of the mid-20th century. His connection to the loch's profound mysteries, his belief in its sentient spirit, became a forgotten footnote in his own private journals, completely irrelevant to the public's pursuit of a biological cryptid. Historiadores aim to dispute the threshold of proof required to validate extraordinary claims, particularly in the realm of cryptids. Does a blurred photograph or a shaky film provide sufficient evidence to challenge conventional biological understanding, or does it merely highlight the human propensity for pareidolia, seeing patterns or familiar shapes in ambiguous stimuli? The Dinsdale film, much like the surgeon's photograph, continues to be a central point of contention, embodying the philosophical divide between those who believe the unexplained is merely the unexplained yet, and those who see it as evidence of something truly unknown. The debate, like the loch itself, remains deep and perpetually active, resisting a final, conclusive verdict. The legend of Nessie, therefore, grew in two distinct yet parallel realms. There was the public monster, captured or almost captured on film, a source of tourism and scientific speculation. And then there was Crowley's monster, a private, mystical entity, an ancient spirit of the water that he had in his own unique way encountered and cataloged. His legacy in relation to Loch Ness would largely be one of silence, his profound, deeply personal experiences remaining a secret buried within the pages of his esoteric writings, while the world chased a blurry image on film. He was the connoisseur of the hidden, while the public was content with the visible, however indistinct. The mysterious energies he sought to harness continued to flow beneath the surface, largely unnoticed by the new wave of monster hunters, forever separated from the public frenzy that now swirled around the very waters he once called home. As Aleister Crowley's peculiar narrative fades into the historical mist, and the world moves from grainy photographs to amateur film footage, the story of Boleskine House, his former Scottish sanctuary, continues to intertwine with the broader tapestry of the Loch Ness mystery. You now observe how this remote manor, steeped in Crowley's esoteric rituals and profound meditations, maintained its unique, almost magnetic allure, attracting other figures drawn to its secluded beauty and its lingering, otherworldly energies. It's as if the very stones of Boleskine House, having absorbed decades of occult practice, resonated with a frequency that called to creative and curious minds, long after the great beast had departed. After Crowley's departure from Boleskine House, due to financial difficulties and a desire for new pastures, the property passed through several hands. It ceased to be his personal magical laboratory, but its reputation, fueled by local whispers and the lingering aura of its notorious former owner, persisted. It became a place not just with a past, but with a palpable sense of presence. You can almost imagine the air within its walls still holding faint echoes of incense, whispered chants, and the profound silence of Crowley's focused meditations. It was a house that had seen things, felt things, and perhaps even held things. A widely recognized historical fact about Boleskine House and a curious twist in its already fascinating history is that it was later purchased in 1970 by the renowned English musician Jimmy Page, the legendary guitarist and founder of the rock band Led Zeppelin. Page was a fervent admirer of Aleister Crowley, deeply interested in his philosophy, occult practices, and esoteric writings. He had a profound fascination with the occult and had even previously owned some of Crowley's personal artifacts and manuscripts. His acquisition of Boleskine House was therefore not merely a real estate investment, it was a pilgrimage, a deliberate connection to a figure he revered. Jimmy Page was mentioned here, linking Boleskine House to another figure drawn to its esoteric past. Imagine the contrast. Crowley, the austere occultist, pursuing profound spiritual enlightenment through rigorous ritual. Page, the rock star, navigating the turbulent waters of fame and musical innovation, yet sharing a common thread of fascination with the unseen and the powerful. You can almost see Page walking the same halls Crowley once paced, perhaps sensing the lingering energies or even attempting his own less formal explorations of the house's peculiar atmosphere. He often expressed a desire to restore the house to its former glory and even use it as a place to compose music, perhaps believing its unique energies would inspire his creative endeavors. One might even joke that he was hoping to channel some of Crowley's magical songwriting prowess directly from the house's walls. The connection between Crowley's occult legacy and Page's rock and roll artistry adds a deliciously eccentric layer to the history of Boleskine House. While Crowley sought to manifest spiritual entities, Page might have sought to manifest musical genius, both using the house as a crucible for their respective forms of creation. Page's presence at Boleskine, though not directly related to Nessie sightings, indirectly maintained the house's reputation as a place of profound and slightly unsettling mystery, subtly linking it to the broader, enigmatic atmosphere of the loch itself. The very house that housed a personal encounter with the loch's spirit was now home to a rock legend, solidifying its place in cultural lore. A curious eccentricity related to Jimmy Page's ownership of Boleskine House is the numerous anecdotal tales of unusual occurrences during his time there, ranging from strange noises and unexplained fires, some attributed to neglect, others to lingering demonic presences, to feelings of unease reported by visitors. While Page himself was often guarded about his personal experiences there, these stories only cemented the house's reputation as haunted or cursed by Crowley's past rituals. It's almost as if Crowley's magical workings had imbued the very fabric of the house with a permanent, subtle charge, making it a living monument to his esoteric ambitions. You might wonder if the house itself developed a peculiar personality, independent of its residents. The legacy of Boleskine House, therefore, extended beyond Crowley's immediate residency, becoming a point of reference for discussions about the intersection of occultism, celebrity, and lingering paranormal phenomena. It continued to be a place where the veil between the mundane and the extraordinary seemed particularly thin, a magnet for those who sought something beyond the conventional. Historiadores aimed to discutum the extent to which the alleged paranormal activity at Boleskine House was a genuine manifestation of lingering energies, the power of suggestion and expectation, or simply the exaggerated tales of curious visitors and sensation-seeking media. Was the house truly cursed, or did its reputation simply attract individuals and stories predisposed to believe in such things? The debate, much like the spectral echoes within its walls, continues to reverberate. And so, as the hunt for the physical Loch Ness Monster continued to evolve with new technologies and new expeditions, which we will delve into soon, Boleskine House served as a quiet, powerful reminder of another deeper kind of mystery. It was a place where Aleister Crowley had not just lived, but worked, attempting to commune with the very spirit of the loch, an entity far more profound and ancient than any mere biological cryptid. Jimmy Page's ownership simply underscored this hidden heritage, maintaining the house's status as a nexus of strange energies and fascinating histories. The house, like the loch itself, refused to give up all its secrets, standing as a silent monument to the enduring power of the unknown, and to the enduring appeal of the very particular kind of magic that Crowley had sought to wield. It was a house that remained subtly, powerfully connected to the mysterious depths of Loch Ness, forever whispering of ancient, hidden truths. You've accompanied Aleister Crowley through his esoteric retreat at Boleskine House, witnessing his unique inner encounters with what he perceived as the loch's ancient spiritual essence. You've also observed the burgeoning public fascination with the Loch Ness Monster, a story propelled by blurry photos and amateur films, pulling the world into a more tangible, though equally elusive, hunt. Now let's contemplate the curious, almost paradoxical, intersection between these two seemingly disparate worlds. The rigorous yet controversial field of cryptozoology and the often maligned yet persistent realm of occult practices. Both, in their own ways, stretch the boundaries of what is considered real or knowable, challenging the comforting logic of the conventional. Imagine the dedicated cryptozoologist, equipped with sonar, underwater cameras, and perhaps a healthy dose of optimism, meticulously searching for a biological animal. Their quest is rooted in science, or at least the scientific method, observation, data collection, hypothesis testing. They dream of discovering a relic population of plesiosaurs, or a new species of large, unknown aquatic creature, a breakthrough that would redefine our understanding of the planet's biodiversity. This is a recognized historical fact. Cryptozoology, as a field, is dedicated to the study of unknown or unconfirmed animals, often focusing on folklore and anecdotal evidence to guide systematic searches. It operates at the very fringes of mainstream zoology, often attracting both passionate researchers and passionate skeptics. They often spend years and considerable funds chasing shadows and echoes, hoping for that one definitive piece of evidence. You might even find yourself rooting for them, a quiet hope that there's still wonder left in the world that hasn't been cataloged and put behind glass. Now contrast this with Aleister Crowley, the occultist. His hunt for the Loch Ness entity involved no boats or sonar. It was an internal expedition, a journey into the hidden dimensions of consciousness, using rituals, meditation, and invocation as his tools. For him, the monster was a manifestation of ancient energies, an elemental spirit, or perhaps a powerful egregore, a thought form brought into being by centuries of human belief. He wasn't looking for bones or DNA. He was seeking contact with a non-physical intelligence, a source of arcane knowledge or power. His goal was not to classify a species, but to commune with an entity. He probably found the whole idea of scientific proof for something so profoundly spiritual rather quaint, like trying to prove love with a measuring tape. Yet, despite their vastly different methodologies and objectives, both cryptozoology and occultism share a profound commonality. They operate at the very edge of human understanding, challenging established paradigms. Both are frequently dismissed by mainstream academia and public opinion as pseudoscience or outright delusion. The cryptozoologist faces ridicule for pursuing creatures widely believed to be mythical, while the occultist faces scorn for dabbling in what is often deemed superstition or dangerous fantasy. It's almost as if both fields are the unruly stepchildren of intellectual inquiry, constantly trying to get a seat at the grown-ups' table and rarely succeeding. You might even feel a pang of sympathy for them, diligently pursuing their truths in a world that often prefers comfortable, well-defined certainties. A curious eccentricity that links these two fields, in a way, is the enduring human need for mystery. In an increasingly rationalized and cataloged world, both the elusive cryptid and the hidden magical force offer a tantalizing glimpse of the unknown. They provide a space for wonder, for the possibility that there is more to reality than meets the eye, or than can be measured by conventional instruments. This shared psychological function, fulfilling a primal human desire for the magical, the unexplained, is a subtle yet powerful common thread. Perhaps it's why people are willing to spend hours watching a blurry video of a lake or reading esoteric texts that defy easy comprehension. We crave a little bit of impossible. The debates surrounding both fields also echo each other. When it comes to Nessie, historians and scientists still hotly debate whether cryptozoology is a legitimate scientific pursuit or merely a hobby fueled by anecdotal evidence and misidentification. Is it a brave exploration into uncharted biological territory or a pseudoscientific dead end? Similarly, regarding Aleister Crowley's occult practices, scholars continue to debate their efficacy, their psychological impact, and their place in the history of ideas. Was Crowley genuinely tapping into supernatural forces? Or was he a master of self-hypnosis and psychological manipulation, creating elaborate systems that reflected his own inner world? The academic debate often centers on the very definition of evidence and truth, and how much our preconceived notions influence what we are willing to accept or dismiss. It's a debate as deep and murky as the waters of Loch Ness itself. You might even wonder if there's a metaphorical overlap. Could the monster that cryptozoologists seek, a biological creature, be a physical manifestation or a lower frequency vibration of the very elemental spirit or egregore that Crowley claimed to encounter? Is it possible that the physical and the metaphysical are not entirely separate, but merely different expressions of a single underlying reality? This is where the realms truly blur, where the scientific quest for an animal brushes shoulders with the occultist's search for an entity. It's a thought that, while perhaps unscientific, adds a certain poetic resonance to the story. The persistence of both pursuits, despite widespread skepticism, is a testament to the enduring human fascination with the inexplicable. Generations continue to search for Nessie, poring over sonar readings, deploying mini-subs, and launching drone expeditions. Simultaneously, Crowley's esoteric writings continue to be studied, debated, and even practiced by individuals drawn to the hidden wisdom they claim to contain. Neither field has yielded definitive, universally accepted proof, yet both continue to thrive, sustained by a blend of hope, belief, and an almost stubborn refusal to accept the limits of the known. It's almost as if humanity itself needs these fringes, these edges of possibility, to feel complete. We don't want all the answers, do we? Not really. So as you drift further into comfort, consider this silent academic debate. Where does science end and speculation begin? Where do verifiable facts meet the realm of subjective experience and belief? The search for Nessie, whether physical or spiritual, exemplifies this fascinating tension. It's a gentle reminder that even in our pursuit of knowledge, there are still vast, unexplored territories, both within the physical world and within the boundless landscape of the human mind. The ultimate mystery of Loch Ness, therefore, lies not just in whether a creature exists, but in our enduring need to believe in and search for the unknown, in whatever form it may take. Whether it's a blurry photo on the surface or a profound vision in a deep trance, the frontier of the inexplicable continues to call to us, promising something beyond the comfortable logic of our everyday lives. You've traversed the curious landscape of Aleister Crowley's esoteric encounters and the public's clamorous hunt for a physical beast, witnessing how both paths, though disparate, led to the enigmatic waters of Loch Ness. Now let's narrow our focus, drifting into a quiet contemplation of the true silent protagonist of our tale, the Loch Ness itself. Imagine it now not as a stage for monstrous drama, but as a vast, ancient, and profoundly cold body of water, whose very characteristics make it the perfect natural vault for enduring mysteries. whether physical or spiritual. A widely recognized historical fact about Loch Ness is its formidable geological and limnological characteristics. It is the second largest loch in Scotland by surface area, but by far the largest by volume, holding more water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined. This immense volume is due to its extraordinary depth, reaching over 230 meters, approximately 755 feet in places. It is one of the deepest freshwater bodies in Europe. You can almost feel the chilling plunge into those abyssal depths where sunlight barely penetrates and the temperature hovers around a constant frigid 5.5 degrees Celsius, 42 degrees Fahrenheit, year-round. It's a deep, dark, cold world down there, largely untouched by human activity, a veritable underwater canyon. This extreme depth, combined with its vastness, provides an almost incomprehensible amount of space for something, anything to hide. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. If the haystack were the size of a small country and made of perpetually murky water. The water itself possesses a peculiar characteristic that contributes significantly to its mystery, its famous murkiness. Unlike many clear mountain lakes, Loch Ness is fed by rivers and streams that flow over vast areas of peaty soil. This peat dissolves into the water, giving it a distinctive dark brownish hue, making visibility notoriously poor. You can often see only a few feet in front of you, even near the surface. Imagine trying to spot something in such conditions. It's like peering into a cup of strong, unsweetened tea. This natural obscurity is a fundamental factor in the persistence of the Nessie legend. If the water were crystal clear, the mystery might have been solved decades ago, or perhaps never even begun. It's the ultimate natural cloaking device. This unique combination of immense depth and abysmal visibility creates a habitat that is both alluring for cryptid enthusiasts and incredibly challenging for scientific investigation. It offers the perfect conditions for a large, unknown creature to evade detection. For an animal to thrive in such an environment, it would need to be well adapted to cold, dark conditions and perhaps capable of surviving on a relatively sparse food supply, as the deep parts of the loch are not teeming with life. The sheer amount of unexplored territory within the loch's volume means that, theoretically, a very large creature could exist without ever being seen by human eyes. It's an inconvenient truth for those seeking definitive proof, but a tantalizing possibility for those who love a good mystery. A curious eccentricity about the ecology of Loch Ness is the relatively low biodiversity compared to some other large freshwater lakes. The loch's cold, murky waters and its rapid turnover of water, it empties and refills relatively quickly, create a challenging environment for many species. While it supports salmon, trout, and eels, the general lack of a diverse and abundant food source in the deepest parts poses a significant challenge for theories of a large, predatory animal sustaining a breeding population. Historiadores aim to discutum if the loch's ecosystem could realistically support a population of large, carnivorous creatures like plesiosaurs, or if such theories are biologically improbable given the available food chain. Some argue that an undiscovered food source might exist, or that the creature is not a large predator in the traditional sense, possibly feeding on smaller, deep-dwelling organisms or even migrating fish. The debate, like the current, continues to churn beneath the surface. for Aleister Crowley, dwelling on the shores of this immense dark body of water, its physical characteristics would have been less about scientific classification and more about symbolic resonance. The depth represented the subconscious, the hidden truths, the abyss of unknowable power. The murkiness represented the veil between worlds, the obscuring mist that conceals the true nature of reality. He wasn't looking for a food chain, he was looking for a power chain, a connection to the fundamental energies of the planet. The very lack of conventional life in its depths might have suggested to him that other non-physical forms of life or energy could thrive there unseen and undisturbed. He was, in his own way, exploring its spiritual ecology. The persistent coldness of the water, a feature mentioned in countless accounts, also adds to its eerie mystique. It's a cold that seems to penetrate, a chill that hints at primordial forces and ancient secrets preserved in an almost timeless state. This profound coldness would have resonated with Crowley's understanding of hidden static energies waiting to be awakened. He might have seen it as a reservoir of primordial potential, a deep freeze for ancient powers. Ultimately, the physical characteristics of Loch Ness, its immense depth, its coldness, and its murky, peat-stained waters make it a perfect, albeit inconvenient, setting for the enduring legend of its monster. It allows for the possibility of something unseen, something vast, to dwell within its embrace forever, challenging our assumptions and fueling our imaginations. Whether it's a relic of the past, a new species waiting to be discovered, or a manifestation of ancient energy, the loch itself is the ultimate guardian of its secrets, a silent, powerful presence that continues to invite speculation, wonder, and a very comfortable, sleepy sense of mystery. It is the perfect canvas for both scientific curiosity and esoteric exploration, always hinting at more than it reveals, ensuring its legend will drift on, undisturbed for centuries to come. You've traveled through the ancient whispers of folklore, witnessed Aleister Crowley's esoteric communion with the loch's hidden energies, and observed the world's clamorous, yet ultimately inconclusive, hunt for a physical beast. You've even dipped your toes into the cold, murky depths of Loch Ness itself, contemplating its immense, enigmatic character. Now, as the final chapter of our sleepy adventure unfurls, let's settle into a gentle reflection on why the legend of Nessie, despite all the sonar, all the blurry photographs, and all the academic debates, persists. Why does it continue to hold such an unshakable grip on our imaginations, not just as a tourist attraction, but as a deeply embedded part of the Scottish soul? Imagine the quiet comfort of a familiar story, one that you can return to again and again, finding new nuances each time, even if the ending remains tantalizingly unresolved. That is, in many ways, the enduring appeal of Nessie. It is a story woven into the very fabric of Scottish identity, a national icon that transcends the simple question of its physical existence. For the people of Scotland, Nessie is more than a potential cryptid. It is a symbol of their wild, untamed landscapes, their ancient history, and their unique cultural spirit. It represents the mystery that still thrives in an increasingly cataloged world, a comforting reminder that not every secret needs to be unearthed, not every enigma needs a definitive explanation. It's almost like a beloved, slightly mischievous family pet that no one has ever quite managed to photograph clearly. A widely recognized historical fact about Scotland is its profound connection to its folklore and historical narratives. tales of mythical creatures, fierce warriors, and dramatic landscapes are central to the national identity, passed down through generations. Nessie fits seamlessly into this rich tradition, becoming a modern folk hero. The monster, whether real or imagined, provides a unique cultural touchstone, a shared narrative that evokes a sense of wonder and pride. It's a tale that unites locals and fascinates visitors, giving them a common language of speculation and awe. You can almost hear the soft brogue telling a story by a crackling fire. The monster as much a part of the landscape as the heather and the misty hills. It's a marketing marvel and a cultural treasure, all rolled into one mysterious package. The persistence of the legend is also deeply tied to our innate human need for wonder. In a world increasingly dominated by scientific explanation and technological advancement, the Loch Ness Monster offers a delicious counterpoint. It's a tangible yet intangible mystery that allows for the suspension of disbelief, a space where the fantastical can still exist. It ignites curiosity, fuels dreams of discovery, and provides a gentle escape from the mundane. You can't quite explain it away, but you can't quite prove it either. And it's precisely that liminal space that makes it so captivating. It's the ultimate what if that we're all secretly hoping turns out to be true. Imagine how much more boring our world would be if every mystery was neatly solved and filed away. A curious eccentricity related to Nessie's cultural impact is the sheer volume of artistic and literary works it has inspired. From children's books and animated series to serious documentaries and feature films, Nessie has become a muse for countless storytellers. She, or he, or it, the gender is as elusive as the creature itself, appears on everything from postage stamps to tourism advertisements, becoming a universal symbol of the unknown. This pervasive cultural representation ensures that even those who've never been to Scotland or heard a single credible sighting feel a connection to the legend. It's a testament to the power of a good story, regardless of its factual basis. Nessie has achieved a kind of immortality in the collective consciousness, far beyond the lifespan of any biological creature. She has her own brand, her own mythology, and probably better PR than most actual historical figures. Historians still debate the precise psychological and sociological factors that contribute to the enduring power of urban legends and cryptid myths, particularly those that resist definitive proof. Is it a form of collective wish fulfillment, a desire to believe in something magical in a world that often feels too rational? Is it a way for communities to assert a unique identity, distinct from the globalized mainstream? Or does it tap into deeper archetypal fears and fascinations resonating with primordial human connections to the wild and unknown? The debate, much like the gentle waves on the loch, continues to ripple outwards, never quite settling into a clear, single answer. It's a delightful puzzle for the mind, even as your eyelids grow heavy. And this brings us back to Aleister Crowley, the man who saw beyond the physical manifestation to the spirit of the loch. While the public chased a blurry image, Crowley, in his own eccentric way, was perhaps closer to understanding why Nessie truly persists in the human heart. For him, the monster was a spiritual entity, an ancient presence, a manifestation of the loch's profound essence. His experience, though rooted in occult belief, underscores a crucial point, that the allure of Nessie lies not just in the potential discovery of an animal, but in the enduring power of the unknown, the comfort found in the acknowledgement that some things simply defy easy explanation. He found his monster not through a camera, but through communion, and perhaps that's the most profound kind of discovery of all. The legend of Nessie, therefore, offers a unique kind of tranquility. It's the tranquility that comes from accepting mystery, from embracing the possibility that not everything needs to be defined, categorized, or captured to be real in our hearts and minds. It's a gentle reminder that sometimes the greatest comfort lies in the unexplained, in the subtle hum of possibility that keeps the world feeling vast and full of wonder. So, as you drift into deeper relaxation, let the image of Loch Ness, with its ancient depths and its timeless mystery, settle in your mind. It is a place where legends are born, where history unfolds in strange and unexpected ways, and where the elusive monster continues to swim, not just in the dark waters, but in the very soul of Scotland, a perpetual source of gentle fascination and sleepy dreams. It's a reminder that some of the most profound truths are those that remain just beyond our grasp, forever enticing, forever comforting in their beautiful, enduring mystery. You've journeyed with us tonight, drifting through the ancient mists of folklore, observing the peculiar rituals of Aleister Crowley on the shores of Loch Ness, and witnessing the world's enduring fascination with its elusive monster. Now, as the narrative threads gently unwind, allowing your thoughts to soften and your breath to deepen, we invite you to ease into a state of profound tranquility. The story of Nessie, with all its unsolved mysteries and lingering questions, becomes, in this quiet moment, a lullaby for the restless mind, a comforting embrace of the unknown that whispers peace into the encroaching darkness. Let your attention slowly, deliciously detach from the details of historical facts and curious eccentricities, the specific dates, the names of the figures, the exact scientific debates. All of these can now gently recede, like ripples on the surface of a vast, calm lake, slowly spreading out until they vanish entirely into an undisturbed stillness. Feel yourself sinking deeper into the cushioned comfort beneath you, every muscle softening, every lingering tension melting away, as if dissolved by the warm, gentle current of peace that now flows through your entire being. This is a time for quiet release, for allowing the day's concerns to simply float away, untethered, into the boundless expanse of your inner calm. Imagine the vast, inky blackness of Loch Ness at its deepest point, hundreds of meters below the surface, a place where no sunlight ever reaches, where the temperature remains constant, a silent, ancient heart beating in the core of the earth. But instead of feeling cold or intimidating, picture this deep darkness as infinitely comforting, a soft, velvety blanket that cradles the secrets of the world, holding them safe and sound. It's a darkness that promises no threats, only the profound quietude of undisturbed peace, a sanctuary where time itself seems to slow, stretching out into an endless, soothing expanse. You are now entering that same realm of tranquil depth, secure and utterly at ease, perfectly suspended between waking and dreaming. As you breathe in, slowly, deeply, feel the cool, crisp air of the Scottish Highlands filling your lungs, pure and invigorating. Then, as you exhale, imagine releasing every last trace of weariness, every single fragmented thought, every tiny worry that might still be clinging to the edges of your awareness. Let each exhalation become a soft sigh of contentment, a gentle letting go, allowing your mind to become as clear and as undisturbed as the calm surface of the loch under a starlit sky, reflecting the infinite shimmering patterns of the cosmos above. There's no need for answers, no need for explanations, just the serene acceptance of what is and the profound quietude that accompanies it. The very mystery of Nessie, the fact that something so vast and so elusive can continue to exist beyond our full comprehension, becomes a comforting thought, a gentle reassurance that the world still holds pockets of wonder, areas where the magic of the unknown remains vibrantly alive. It reminds us that not everything has to be analyzed, dissected, or proven to be a valid and beautiful part of our collective human experience. Sometimes the most profound peace comes from simply embracing the unexplained, from allowing ourselves to be lulled by the sheer magnificent possibility of things unseen, things unproven, things that simply are in their own quiet and mysterious way. This is the comfort of the boundless, the solace found in the infinite stretch of possibility, where the only thing that matters is your own gentle, peaceful descent into slumber. Imagine a single lone star shimmering faintly in the immense, dark sky above Loch Ness, its tiny light a perfect, reassuring beacon in the vastness. Its light reflects gently on the calm surface of the water, a single perfect point of tranquility in the boundless darkness, inviting you to simply gaze upon it, to feel its steady, comforting presence. This star is a promise of serenity, a silent guardian watching over your peaceful slumber, ensuring that you are safe, cherished, and utterly at peace. As your eyelids grow heavier, softening at the edges, imagine yourself drifting effortlessly, gently towards that soft, shimmering light, feeling a profound sense of warmth and security enveloping you completely, guiding you towards the deepest, most restorative sleep. You are perfectly cared for, utterly secure, and beautifully at rest. You've reached the end of another cozy Nappy tale. Sleep well, and remember, you're always welcome here.